Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys coming by the channel and spending some time with me. And guys, today we're going to be talking about why I want to explain to you guys why everything, I mean everything about bass fishing, the sport of bass fishing on every single level was better 40 years ago than it is today. And the point of the video I want to talk about, I'm not like just, living back in the old times, that type of deal. It was better. And I want to explain to you exactly what I mean by that and how we can get back there. We are not predestined, or we're not forced to go down this dark road that we're on right now in the sport of bass fishing. So I sort of want to take you guys back to a little step in time back and explain to you guys what I mean by this. And I think after I get done with the video, probably win some of you guys over on the same viewpoint. Also, guys, before we get started, I want to remind you about the Father's Day sale going on with the SolarBat series, my signature series sunglasses from SolarBat. Right now, this month for Father's Day, you can get them at 30% off. And also, guys, any purchase over $98, you get a free pair of work glasses. The safety glasses, SolarBat safety glasses. So I'll put my SolarBat link in the description if you guys would like to get you a pair of those, and really appreciate that. Okay, one of the things that you are going to get here on this channel, you're going to get an honest perspective in the history of the sport, because I am a big historian in the sport of fishing, and I think that anyone that bass fishes, especially if you're a tournament angler, you owe it to the sport to be a historian of the sport and to school yourself and to educate yourself on everybody that came before you. It seems like to me that so many people today are oblivious to anything that happened any farther than 5 or 10 years ago. So I want to step back in time a little bit and explain to you guys how bass fishing in general, the sport of fishing, has deteriorated to the point where it's at right now, where, in my opinion, guys, it's at the all-time low point it's ever been. I've been, a bass member since the mid-'70s. I've been bass fishing for over 50 years. I've been tournament fishing since the late 70s. And I can tell you honestly, guys, the sport right now is worse off than it's ever been by every single metric you want to measure it by. Okay, guys, here's why it was better. If you step back in time 30 or 40 years ago, one of the things about it is you can't underestimate the power and how precious simplicity is in bass fishing. The more complicated that you make bass fishing, the more that you draw it away from the fundamental element that makes it powerful. And back in, the mid 80s and early 90s, this was a much simpler time in the fact that, there wasn't as much, it didn't cost as much. Top of the line bass boat back 40 years ago was like $15,000. Tournaments were limited to 150 horsepower. Most guys in their boats, they carried 6 or 7 rod or reels with them. They carried like 1 or 2 tackle boxes. And all we had as far as our electronics was a flasher and a paper map. And some guys like myself, I had a compass on my boat, but we did everything with a flasher and a paper map. And one thing that I did, I carried, an extra, the flashers back then, they broke down a lot. So I'd always carry a spare flasher with me, just in case one broke down. But I usually had the old Humminbird Super 60s, and there was a flasher called the company name I think it was Micronar made. I used that a little bit, but flashers and paper maps. So here's the thing that has changed a lot about it. When Bassmaster first started in 1984, I think that was the first year they had the Bassmasters television show, the level of excitement for the tournament world was unparalleled at that time. It's like Ray Scott, Bob Cobb, the Bassmasters, you guys have seen it, the old classic Bassmaster where Larry Nixon's got a big fish on down at the Harris chain, and everybody looked forward to that. It's like you didn't hear a bad word about Bassmaster. You didn't have any drama or controversy. There weren't things separating the anglers. There wasn't this division. And most importantly, why it was better, there's 2 different things, is the fishing was simply better. We didn't have near the fishing pressure. We didn't have near the tournaments. And it was simply more enjoyable because you'd go out on the lake and there wouldn't be, back then you didn't have near the recreational boats on the lake. There wasn't even a thing called wake boats. Jet skis weren't around yet. People that went to the lake just fished, and so many of the people that went to the lake had like V-bottom aluminum boats with 20 horsepowers on it. you didn't see anybody at the ramps during the week. It's like now, guys, you go down to the boat ramp on almost any big lake around the country. It doesn't matter if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, the freaking ramps are packed. But back then, I remember for decades, I'd go up to Stockton Lake here in Missouri, or even down to Table Rock during the week. I'd be the only boat on the ramp. You can't do that anymore. On the weekends out there, the only tournaments there would be a bass club tournament, or occasionally there'd be one, just a red man tournament. But now there are so many tournament circuits. There are just hundreds of different tournament circuits, and we did not have that back then. You'd have like a buddy benefit tournament, or like I said, a club tournament, something like that. And most important of all, you had a standard bearer in the world of professional fishing. It was the Bass Anglers Tournament Trail, Bassmaster Tournament Trail. There wasn't FLW, there wasn't MLF, there wasn't NPFL, there wasn't all this other stuff that's going on now. You knew where you stood. And if you wanted to be a professional angler, you had to enter the Bassmaster Tournament Trail and finish in the top 35 of 6 tournaments in order to go to the Bassmaster Classic. It was cut and dried and simple. 6 tournaments, took the top 35 to the Bassmaster Classic. They took one angler from, the federation in each division. That comprised the Bassmaster Classic, and the industry recognized it as such. It's like there was a true definition of what a professional angler was back then, and there's not anymore. It's like now everybody's a professional angler, and that's why it's next to impossible to get sponsorships, because there's too many professional anglers. There's too many anglers. There's not enough money to go around. But back then, you had a situation where if you qualified for the Bassmaster Classic, you got sponsorships for that. A lot of times they'd come to you with it. And the simplicity and the innocence surrounding the world of tournament fishing was so much more refreshing. And that's why anybody that was around 30 or 40 years ago that went through that time frame and they experienced what I'm talking about here, they all agree with me. They all go back to that just that, the energy and the simplicity of it was so precious at the time, and we completely lost that. Now, the main thing why it was better 40 years ago than it is now was the fact that the fishing was simply better. It's like we did not have the number of anglers on the lakes. So you didn't have the fish, number one, they weren't as educated, they weren't as pressured, they were a lot more aggressive. You could catch them shallow most all year long. People did not really eat bass that much back then. Catch and release started catching on back in the 70s, and by the 80s, a lot of people practiced catch and release. And if they wanted to eat fish, they ate white bass or crappie or catfish or something like that. But it's only been the past 10 years ago that people have revolted almost against this catch and release. And now you hear all the time, I love to keep and eat bass. I keep bass all the time. You didn't hear people doing that 40 years ago. And then add to that the absolute destruction and the degradation and the slap in the face that live scope and forward facing sonar has put on the world of bass fishing over the past couple of years, that it's the icing on the cake in terms of the degradation of the sport that we've seen. So when you talk about people that they say, oh, Randy's living in the past, he's an old washed up geezer, the ways of the past don't work. The only reason you're saying that, the people that do that, is they were not there before to see what was actually better. It's like change for the sake of change, or change in general, a lot of times is not an improvement. It's not moving forward, it's stepping back. And if you look, and if you had the chance to live and experience bass fishing 40 years ago, you would recognize that the bass fishing world that we have today in 2025, it doesn't matter if it's recreational or tournament angling, is a huge step backwards in the overall experience of the sport by far. And it's like, it's hard for somebody to wrap their mind around that. If you're 20 or 30 years old, or even 40 years old, and you weren't around back then, or you're a little bitty kid back in 1985 or 1990, you do not understand what I'm talking about. You can't. It's almost like somebody that fought in the Pacific with the Marines in World War II. Unless you were there on Peleliu and Tarawa and Saipan, you can't watch it on TV and understand what that experience was like. It's the same with people that have not fished in 1985 or 1990. You can't relate to what the energy was with that. And all you know is what you know right now. But I can tell you, and one of the things that we're fighting for on this channel, and what a lot of people in my generation are fighting for, is a return to that simplicity and innocence and simply the better situation that we had 40 years ago, because it has deteriorated. We live in a world of bass fishing right now. The sport is divided. You know, live scope is destroying the sport. The tournament organizations, for the most part, are complicit and accomplices with this destruction. Everybody's pissed off at everybody. We've got this unbelievable division in the sport that has been created by technology. We got so many dang tournaments on the lake that you can't even get out there and enjoy a weekend. Hell, I fished a tournament at Table Rock Lake last April, guys. There was 1,000 tournament boats on Table Rock Lake. That is complete bullshit. It's like, why do the lake managers, the water patrol, whoever's in charge of issuing permits, they need to be freaking fired, because they don't know what the hell they're doing to issue tournaments where there's 1,000 tournament boats on a lake. We never had that back in 1985. So it's like anything else, guys. It's like, one of the things that I believe, and I hate to say, is that human beings destroy everything they touch. There's some humans out there that really fight hard against that destruction, but a lot of times they just get drowned out in the herd of cows that are just self-destructing everything. And that's what we're seeing in bass fishing right now. You know, we're seeing the self-destruction of this sport. And it doesn't help when people deny that reality. It doesn't help when tournament organizations want to sweep it under the rug. It doesn't help when you have some YouTubers out there that try to deny and sugarcoat that reality and make everything seem like rainbows and unicorns. The only way to affect change for positive is to acknowledge the problem. And there's a lot of people out there that watch me and they say that I'm the most negative dude on YouTube and all I do is complain and divide everybody. That's not what it is. You're looking at the entire situation completely wrong. It's like, everything needs to be done to try to improve it moving forward for the future, to ensure the sustainability of that. And it's not that everybody has a different viewpoint or perception of what that is. There's only one truth to it. And when it comes to bass fishing and the sustainability of that sport, number one, we have got to protect our environment. We can't side with the polluters and we can't side with the deregulators. We have got to protect our environment, because if you don't have clean air and clean water and an environment that allows the food chain and the cycle of life to continue unabated, you're not going to have fishing. Number two, we've got too many people on the lakes. Our lakes are getting overfished. Number three, we've got too many bass tournaments, way too many bass tournaments. And the combination of too many bass tournaments and too many anglers on the lake with this advancing technology, it makes the fish have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to hide. And that's why we've seen such a precipitous decline in the productivity of our lakes by traditional bass fishing techniques that's being whitewashed and hidden by the fact that technology seems to make it easier to catch the fish, and that's not the case. The technology is all that's doing, it's just covering up the problem. The root of the problem lies within technology destroying the sport. We're overusing our fisheries. We are apathetic about our environmental situations. Our environmental situations have been politicized and villainized. The scientific data has been undermined. There's a ton of different stuff that we're fighting against right now. But the point is, what I'm saying is, guys, we can rein this back in. It's like we can return to those days of the mid 80s and early 90s where we have that simplicity and the wonderment and the magic and the innocence of the sport. We're not predestined to go down this road that we're headed down right now. But the problem you have, just like we have in our political system today, you have a lot of people in positions of power that are inept and incompetent, that are running things. There's a lot of people in this country right now that are inept and incompetent, that are in charge of things, and it extends over into the bass fishing community. So my recommendation, guys, is, like I said, fight for the simplicity of fishing. You know, fight for that innocence and maintain that innocence in fishing, because we're headed down a path right now, guys, we do not want to go to. And it's only people like myself and other people that spend time thinking about this all the time and digging into it that are sort of aware of it. But anyway, guys, appreciate, I got to pick up Elijah here. The school line's starting to move. Anyway, appreciate you guys joining in. Join me for the good fight, guys. Come over to the good side here, and let's see if we can make some positive change moving forward in the future. Talk later.